Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the fifth and final class in Horizon's O.T.O 101 series called What is Initiation? In this short class, I'm going to try to give you some straightforward and really down-to-earth answers to common questions about initiation. What it is, why you might seek it out, just kind of like what you might hope to get from it, how it relates to O.T.O, and what to do if you're interested in being initiated into O.T.O. I know the class is called What is Initiation, and so it sounds very general, and some of the things I'm going to talk about are general concepts and would apply to other groups, but if I have to pick, I'm going to lean more towards explaining O.T.O than explaining big concepts, and in particular, the introductory degrees of O.T.O. And that should hopefully all make sense by the time we're done. If it doesn't, we'll, of course, have a Q&A at the end. And finally, really before I start, I'd like to mention that if you get something out of this class and you'd like to support our work, do please consider donating to Horizon Lodge. I'll paste the links in the chat room right now so that I don't forget. That's the PayPal address. And paypal.me/HorizonOTO. Those donations really help us a lot to continue doing the work that we're doing and presenting things like masses and initiations, which this class is about, and classes like this. Okay, so to really start, what is initiation? And specifically, what is an initiation ceremony? Because that's the kind of thing we're talking about. So most likely, you've probably already gone through one. So if you're 18 or 19 or 20, if you've been through a graduation ceremony, or were in a fraternity or a sorority in college, or some things I'm much less familiar with, if you ever took your first communion or you had a bar mitzvah, those are all a type of initiation ceremony. An initiation ceremony is something that marks a passage from one phase or state of life into another, and a transition from being an outsider to a group to an insider within a group. So when you graduate from high school, you enter the class of being a high school graduate. Or if you had pledged to a fraternity in college, you become a brother or sister of that fraternity or sorority, as the case may be. Or, sometimes it's a rite of passage to make you an adult in your community in some particular sense. That's what an initiation is. It's a rite of passage that's often a ceremony of some kind that takes an individual that's not a part of a group and it makes them into a part of a group. Now, these ceremonies often share particular features. There's that first phase where you're an outsider and you're kind of recognized as such, and that's acknowledged. Then there's a liminal phase where you're no longer in the old state, like you've moved past that, but you're not fully in the new state that you want to attain. Coincidentally, that's what liminal actually means, is that you've left the old, but you haven't quite entered the new in this kind of anthropological sense. And then there's a phase where you're recognized as a member of this group. Your new status is confirmed. Quite often, there are what are called ordeals that feature some real or symbolic pain or discomfort. And the type of secret societies that exist in the United States, like O.T.O or Freemasonry, these ordeals are often going to be symbolic. In more traditional initiation ceremonies, they can often be quite severe. You have to learn some of the secrets of the group, how to identify yourself as a member to other members. All those phases don't happen all the time, and they're not always in the exact order. But there's been a lot of anthropological study about this, and it's really fairly consistent. If you take an anthropology course, you could learn all about this, or even probably Wikipedia. So initiation into the O.T.O is very much like that. But instead of being a rite of passage, like graduating from high school or first communion, where it's the sort of thing that everyone in a particular society does because it's just like a phase of life. What we do is much more informed by the practices, or at least by the idea of the practices of the ancient mystery schools that come to us via Freemasonry and other similar secret societies. And the ancient mystery schools, I'm going to explain the word, what I mean by mystery here in a minute, because I'm using it in kind of a strange way. The ancient mystery schools were societies that taught people through their own ceremonies of initiation the mysteries of a particular god. For instance, in classical antiquity, there were mystery schools of Mithras or Isis or Dionysus, etc. And people who initiated into those, they're called mystery schools, those schools would learn through those ceremonies the mysteries of those gods. That's the type of initiation that O.T.O performs. It's not a rite of passage. We don't, you're not like, congratulations, you're a grown-up now. O.T.O is more or less a mystery school. And initiation into O.T.O is meant to accomplish several things. First, it makes you a member of O.T.O. Just about any adult could be a member of O.T.O, but no one can be a member of O.T.O unless they have physically and in person gone through our initiation ceremonies, at least one of them, right? If they tell you that they are initiated into O.T.O astrally or anything like that, then just ignore them because they don't know what they're talking about. We don't do that. You have to be there. It's a real physical thing. Second, the O.T.O teaches you our mysteries through these ceremonies. Mystery in the context of these ceremonies and the mystery schools refers to two things. First, it literally refers to the specific secret parts of a ritual that you don't talk about with people who haven't been through it. In the context of O.T.O, this is the entire ritual. We don't talk about our rituals, which is out of respect for the rituals themselves, and because we consider them like sacred, but also out of consideration for you. If you decide to initiate into O.T.O, I don't want to spoil your experience by giving you spoilers. The word mystery also refers to things that cannot be understood by reason. You'll see this in Catholicism, I think. They have the mysteries of the crucifixion. And so what they're kind of saying is that, you can't just like explain it. You kind of have to understand it at some like intuitive or aesthetic or some level other than reason. You have to grok it. And it's not just like a logical system like geometry or calculus or something where someone just sit you down and explain it. And so O.T.O initiates you into mysteries, our mysteries, in both of those senses, both into the secret things that we do that are our ceremonies, and into the kind of ineffable things that we're trying to communicate. In other words, we use ritual and drama and symbol to teach a particular set of lessons about ethics and life and what it is to be a human being. I just want to kind of briefly explain that the reason that we do it that way is because for most people, the experience of going through an initiation ceremony is kind of weird, right? And so you find because you're stressed out because you don't know what's going to happen, and maybe you're wearing weird clothes and like people are talking in a weird way and kind of stilted language, and they're all wearing weird clothes and their smells, and you see things that you haven't seen before, that it puts you in this really heightened state where you're very receptive to that kind of aesthetic and intuitive experience, so that you can understand what the ceremony is trying to communicate to you in a way that you certainly wouldn't if you just sat down and read it. Don't do that. Don't ruin it for yourself. We can talk more about that in the Q&A if you'd like. And if you've seen so that's what initiation does at O.T.O, right? It teaches you, it makes you a member of our secret society, and it teaches you the things that O.T.O is trying to teach you. And if you've seen the first class in this series, you may recall that the degrees of O.T.O, the initiation ceremonies of O.T.O, are hierarchical. And what that means, right, is that they're sequential. They go one after the other. First you're a Minerval, and then you're a first degree, then you're a second degree. You don't learn everything all at once because that would just be too much, right? That would be too hard. It would be too long. It would be a long day. These degrees that come one after the other are grouped into what are called triads. There are 3 triads. They're called the Hermit, and the Lover, and the Man of Earth. And that's confusing because the first triad that you initiate into is the Man of Earth, followed by the Lover, and finally the Hermit. And so when you join the O.T.O, you take your Minerval degree, and when you take your Minerval degree, you become a member of the Man of Earth triad. And the Man of Earth triad is meant to teach you, among some other things, a system of ethics, more or less, kind of how to be a Thelemite and get along as a Thelemite while still having friends. And it's meant to teach you about the path of a human being in eternity. And I'm going to talk about all those 3 things. The first 2 are very closely related. I talked about this a little bit in the first class, right? So the ethics and how to get along as a Thelemite and still have friends is really useful, right? Because we're a fraternity, we interact with each other. And some people get the wrong idea about Thelema. That just means do whatever the heck you want all the time, like woohoo! But that's not quite right. It's about discovering who you are and being that person. But that doesn't mean that you do that without any restraint. Like, restriction is bad, restraint is very productive. And so one of the things that O.T.O does is, if you're paying attention, that's not a given, but if you're paying attention, it will teach you how to productively apply restraint so that you could do your will, you could be your true self, and not be the sort of person who repels everyone around you, because that can be a thing. And then the other thing that it teaches is about the path of a human being in eternity. And if you look at the public descriptions of the O.T.O degrees, it says that the Minerval is about conception, the first degree is about birth, the second degree is about life, the third degree is about death, and then the fourth degree and the PI degree, those are all of the MOE degrees. The last 2 are about what happens beyond death. And so that is the path of a human being in eternity, right? That's the very beginning to the very end. And if there's something that comes before the beginning and beyond the end, well, those are included in Minerval and in PI, respectively. But that is, it teaches you the story of the human life, what it means to do that from this particular standpoint. There's other things in the Man of Earth degrees are very important. I don't want to be reductive about what they teach, but I also don't want to try to pin it down too much, since they are, after all, mysteries. You have to be there to get it. We could talk about that again at the end if you would like. And finally, let's talk about the mechanics of initiation, right? Like, if you want to join the O.T.O, how do you do that? How does one initiate? So you need a few things. You need 2 sponsors. Your sponsors have to be, to join at the Minerval degree, they have to be at least of the 1st degree or higher. You need to get an application that you ask for. You need to pay the initiation fee. At Horizon, I believe that's $105. That pays for your first year of Grand Lodge dues and pays for certain expenses. No one's making money off of this. You have to be free. That means you can make it to the initiation ceremony. It also means you're not, in the custody of the state, or, you have to be able to make it there. You have to be 18 years old. You have to be of good report, which means 2 things. One, it means that you could get 2 sponsors who will vouch for your good character. And it also means you're not of bad report, which means that you've been like known as a bad person in the O.T.O, and we're like, no. So people have to be able and willing to vouch for you. And you have to be there in person. Once again, we don't astrally initiate. That's not a thing with us. Specifically, if you're at Horizon Lodge, and you want to initiate, this is true, I think, any O.T.O body, you have to ask for the application. We're not going to go up to you and be like, hey, you want to initiate? This is really cool. People might ask if you're interested, but we don't want to be pushy about it. It's a decision that you have to make. Hopefully, after you've gotten to know some of us and think, yeah, these are good people that I want to associate with. And you'll definitely think that. But, take your time and be thoughtful about it. So if you're at an O.T.O event and you want to initiate into O.T.O, go to someone who looks like they know what they're doing, and ask them if you can have an application. And if they can't get you one, hopefully they can point you to someone who can. It's easy peasy, low stress thing. So once again, you need 2 sponsors who are of the 1st degree. You need to fill out your application. They need to sign it. You have to pay the initiation fee. You have to be able to make it to the degree. You have to be 18 years old, and you have to be of good report. That is about all I prepared for today. This is a really short class because there's not really, I can, sorry, I missed your message. Because I want to explain the mechanics of it and the basics of it more than like really go into things that are going to be excessively highfalutin. But yeah, at this point, I am happy to answer any questions that people have about what is initiation, or what does it mean in O.T.O, or how one goes about it.
Well, that is good to know, to ask for an application. I've just been kind of showing up at masses, waiting for someone to ask me in, waiting for 2 people to sponsor me.
Yeah, so that's probably something that we should perhaps communicate better. But yeah, it's it's not an invitation thing; it's an application thing.
All right.
Yep. Yeah, that is a good call out.
Yeah, I just I thought it would have been rude to ask, and I thought it would have been more polite to be invited.
Right. I can understand why you would think that.
Yeah.
it could otherwise feel like you're inviting yourself to a party or something, but it's
Yeah.
not like that, you know.
Okay.
I guess I'm interested to know in what kind of training is involved now as opposed to like 15 years ago.
That's a good question. So I can't actually tell you what was involved 15 years ago because I haven't been a member that long. But what I can tell you is that when you initiate, you typically receive a study guide. And the study guide has a list of things that are recommended to, read, memorize, study, practice. I think that those are the 4 categories. And you are not technically required to do any of that. They are recommended for study. That being said, I highly recommend it. And some people might want you to demonstrate some familiarity with those practices or some knowledge with that before they're willing to sponsor you. But nothing is technically required. The other, as far as knowledge or study like that or practice.
Actually, my question was more about the people doing the initiations.
That's what I thought. That's what I thought you might be asking.
Okay.
Like
Clarify a little bit.
At least in my experience, there has been some maybe not all the I's dotted and T's crossed with respect to various things in the initiations. And I've heard that things are different now. So I guess I'm just wondering, like, what are those changes that have been made?
So I obviously can't get into great detail, but I can tell you that our standards are quite high.
Standards are very high now as compared with 15 years ago.
Yeah. Our standards are very high. There's mandatory training to be an initiator. There's oversight in terms of quality. There's more advanced training for people who've already gone through the basic training. And, at least locally, I'd like to think that we have a culture of excellence and propriety. So we take care to do things correctly and to do things well. If you have other questions, I'd be happy to, that are more specific, I'd be happy to chat with you offline. But yeah, our standards are very high.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Standards of safety and standards of ritual performance. There are, I won't say, the expectations are strict. I would describe them as fairly strict at this point, as compared with 15 years ago, certainly. I recently did a workshop with the person who runs advanced initiator training in the United States. And one of the things that she conveyed to me is that they felt that they had really turned a corner with a lot of that over the course of the last decade, especially to the point now where advanced initiator training involves more advanced topics than simply, don't maim this person or don't do stupid things or whatever. I don't know precisely what used to go on, but the standards are quite high now, and it's expected across the country that those standards are uniform.
But please do reach out to me if you have specific questions. I'm happy to help. Devin, you have your hand up.
I was wondering what characteristics does a sponsor look for in a candidate, and does that criteria vary from sponsor to sponsor?
That's a really good question. So I imagine that the answer to your second question is yes. I could tell you what I look for in a candidate is, like some degree of just like ethical propriety and real interest in the work, right? I don't actually really care, in particular for minerval degree, for that first step. If someone is super knowledgeable, I don't care if they have a deep practice at that stage. What I care about is, do I trust this person? Do I enjoy spending time with them? If would I be comfortable having them over to my house? Things like that. Those are the things that are really important to me. Do I feel it? Often this is like a judgment that you don't always have enough information to know, but with the information that I have and my experience, do I think that this is a good person that is not going to cause me problems in the future? I'm not concerned with people's occult power. I'm concerned with their ethics.
Awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I have a question. Since I have done my MOE, I'm kind of in a place where I'm trying to figure out what is it that's is it me that's looking for it or looking at it, or is it other people in the lodge, or both, as to what qualifies me to move on to the next level. I'm foggy there because I've got all kinds of stuff to read. It's just crazy. And I'm doing that, plus the little bits that were recommended in the guide as I can. But I'm just kind of wondering, what is there a criteria or guidelines or whatever to be looking at myself to move on? Because I don't know what first degree entails. I don't know what that next step is, so it's kind of hard. It's like shooting for the moon that's not there, so it's I don't know how to formulate the question, but hopefully I'm getting something across.
Yeah, I think I kind of get you. So I think that it's instructive that the mandatory minimum time between minerval and first degree is about a month. The mandatory minimum time between first degree and second degree is 9 months, and between second degree and third degree is 1 year. And so I think that one thing that you don't really recognize until you get to the end of those degrees is that they all kind of inform one another. And so I think that if it's been a month, it has, right? Like I know that. And you feel like you've engaged with the material, then I think that the answer is, yeah, it's probably fine. If you think of it as like reading a book, right? Did you give that first chapter like a solid read? You don't have to memorize it. You don't have to like hunt down every single reference. Just like read the chapter and don't leave yourself hanging. That being said, I'm not going to push anyone into taking an idiot initiation, but if you want to, it's probably fine. Would be my answer.
I'm just trying to figure out what I'm trying to get a better grasp of, because it's like I'm reading a lot about what is the lema. Okay. I literally have a book that's called that. I want to make sure that I'm, at a level that I'm okay to move on. Initiation is very serious for me because I did it in my own tradition for other people. So I take it very seriously, and I want to make sure that I'm not just, oh, yeah, I think it's cool now, I think I'll just move on. I don't do that. So, I think this is kind of where I have a pretty good grasp of the mass, I think, at my level. I I can see about 1 billion other levels in that mass that I experience when I'm there. But articulating it is really difficult. So I kind of work a lot of it into my own meditations, So I guess what I've just kind of come down to is how familiar am I getting with all of this, and how comfortable am I with it? And is it jiving for me? And those are the questions that I keep answering and answering and answering as I'm going along with this. And I mean, I'm still very into all of this. It's interesting how I'm integrating it into my life. But it's still, this is, I know a lot of people are just like, okay, I'm cool, let's move on, but I just really want a good saturation of everything. And I know in August I believe I did my MOE in August last year. So, I mean, it's, it'll be a year pretty soon here in a few more months. So I'm not okay with, taking time to do this. It's just, I just want to really make sure that I, am groovy with this. It's just that there's some of this that is still, I don't want to say it's not speaking to me. It's just maybe more of like, I'm not really sure I understand it. So until I get to that place where I understand it, I'm not really wanting to go further with it because, like I said, I don't know what that next step is. It's like, am I going to understand it more if I do first degree? That's what I'm saying. And if so, what? It's pretty deep.
Mhm.
So, but thankfully I'm getting to the point where, where you guys would always ask, well, if you have questions, just ask. I am starting to have questions. So yay.
It's a good step.
That's kind of, I could talk forever. I don't want to, but I just want to, get more clear on how I need to feel before I move on, so yeah.
Yeah,
Sorry.
no, that's fine. I mean, I'd be happy to talk with you offline about it, because that's more personal details. But I mean, I guess that to kind of revisit my earlier answer, I guess that what I'd say is maybe if you feel, how should you feel? It's like, well, if you feel curious, right? Like if you want to, if you're still not sure, then give it time. There's no shame in that. One thing, this is actually a good segue, a good opportunity to mention something I left out, is that in O.T.O, it's okay to not take the next degree. In fact, I'm going to repeat this. In O.T.O, it's okay to not finish the degree that you are currently taking. If you are in the middle of an initiation ceremony and it gets to something that you're not cool with, say so. Say, I need this to stop, and talk about it, or to just not go. Because we're not going to coerce you. It's cool. Once again, if you're in the middle of an initiation ceremony and you don't want the next thing to happen, or you're not sure, say so. It's okay. It's perfectly fine to take as much time as you want and need between degrees.
Yeah, I'm absolutely going to stay in this and do this. It's just my integration is slower. And I don't want to apologize for that at all. So yeah. But like I said, I'm absolutely into this. I want to continue with it and everything. It's quite fascinating, but it's a lot and it's very different from what I've done. So that being said, so anyway, you did a good job. Thank you for.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I was going through the Blue Equinox, which I thought would be a great starting point, at least.
Mhm.
I've been just really having a hard time just trying to find a starting point. It seems like over all the years of reading about the Lema, I've, once again, never gone to Gnostic masses. This is just all private research. There's never been an area of focus. I am very interested in initiation and to maybe have more of a better focus of all this information that I am taking in. I don't think I'm really utilizing it that well. Do you think through initiation with all the information that I have been going through, it could be made of some use, maximizing everything that I'm studying already.
No, but the question was, do I think that it could be of use?
Yeah. I mean, like as I said, I've been kind of like a hermit reading all this information, not really wanting to share and become a part of anything. That's always been a problem of mine. But I really am interested in initiating, just because I feel like it is going to create an area of focus where in a subject where I don't think I really have a good area of focus, even though I am taking in a lot of information. Would being initiated help create a focal point?
So, I mean, I can't answer that specifically for you, right? Like, I don't know you well enough to answer that question that kind of like particular way. That being said, I do kind of think that that's part of the point, right? Is that you have an experience of this ceremony, and you think about it's a really kind of a lame word in this case, but you process that intellectually, you process that emotionally, you try to like integrate the lessons of that degree into your life and into your behavior. And then you work through the study guide. So yeah, I mean, if you're looking for, well, it sounds like what you're talking about is like a syllabus, right? And so if you think of the study guide as a syllabus for this degree, then yeah, that could certainly be helpful in terms of providing focus. I certainly am not qualified to say how you in particular are going to react to, frankly, anything. But, I think that is kind of part of the point, if that helps.
Also, for the sake of those who might be listening to this recording, I think it's worth pointing out that an initiation ceremony is not for the purpose of giving you information. Purpose of thelema is not to acquire information or data on things. And in O.T.O in particular, it's definitely not about giving you information or even about giving you a study guide of things to study. An initiation ceremony is a symbolic ritual drama. Symbols are not, when you're presented with something symbolic, that's not the same thing as being given like a philosophy lecture. Otherwise, we just hand you a piece of paper and say, here you go, go off and study this. And that's not really the point. It's teaching you, as Curly said, the point of these initiations is to help you develop character, to help you develop self-discipline, to practice certain virtues. It's really a training in life. So it's happening at a different register from either giving you an information download or even giving you some kind of conceptual framework necessarily for categorizing what you already know. It's not really about that. He describes this, if you look in the best sources on the purpose of the O.T.O initiations is Confessions chapter 72 and Magic Without Tears chapter 13. Those explain really the emphasis being on development of character, development of virtue, training in life, that sort of thing. So I would describe it as being orthogonal to what you're talking about, or coming at it from a different angle with a different kind of purpose. Because people get very hung up on like, well, do I have enough information? Do I have enough conceptual understanding at this point to go on to the next thing? Mm-hmm. That's not the point. That's not the point of the initiations. The question that I would ask is, have you internalized to a sufficient degree what is taught in the initiation to the point where you're practicing it, putting it into practice? I have a much more practical interpretation of, especially of the man of birth initiations. Those he explicitly said are, they're modeled on the Freemasonic initiations, which were really as much about incorporating a person into a social structure and a set of social practices as they were about teaching you more theoretical subject. So I think that's a different framing on it, which might be helpful to some people listening who might, be kind of curious about that.
That's a good point. Thank you, Jim.
Yeah, I've been kind of making that bridge by attending the few Gnostic masses that I have attended, that it is a lot different from paper than actually being there in the room.
Yeah. Yeah, it's similar to the difference between reading a play and attending it.
Oh, and one more thing about the Gnostic Mass, since Mary brought it up before. The Gnostic Mass encodes the teachings of O.T.O from 0 degree all the way up through 9th. You are not supposed to understand that that ritual on a theoretical level. So don't worry about that. That it's more of an experiential thing. I would point people more to the sense of sacredness and depth that's encoded in that ritual, rather than worrying yourself about having a full understanding of it. It takes a long time to even know what sorts of questions to ask about the Mass. It's a very multi-layered, complex, symbolic ritual. In fact, it actually exemplifies nicely what I was just saying a moment ago about the difference between something which is like, giving you a piece of paper that says, hey, here are the mysteries of the universe, versus portraying something to you in a symbolic form where it is, multi-layered and goes off on different dimensions and has different layers of depth and is more of an embodied experience. The Gnostic Mass is closer to what an initiation is like in that sense than, having a list of books or papers to read.
I don't know if this is a question so much as I'm kind of getting it's sort of confirming a lot of stuff that I've already suspected, but I'm looking at this more like this is kind of becoming for me a confirmation of an observation of my life and where I'm at. And I know that initiation can cause that. And so that's kind of what I'm doing. And that's sort of what Jim explained is actually more of what's happening. And so I wanted to confirm that and say, yes, that's, yeah. So.
Yeah. And I would not, just to clarify, I agree with all that. I don't mean to imply that, the initiation is about getting a checklist of things to read. Just that that is a useful way, if you're into that kind of thing, to engage with the material. And some people are more into that than others. I certainly, I get my study guides. I'm like, a kid at the Scholastic Book Fair. I'm like, woohoo! But yeah, not everyone's like that. That's okay. Everyone that has questions, and I'll let you have the rest of your evening back. And thank you so much for coming and attending, and for all of the great interaction. Thank you very much. Love is the law, love of the will.